Hey everyone, it's Yvonne Inglesas here from the Eating Disorder Recovery Hub, and today I'm just going to remind you again, don't forget to follow us, subscribe to our page so that you can actually get notified when I go live, and that way you can join me, ask me questions along the way, and make these lives a lot more interactive, and I'm able to answer your questions on the spot. So today, my topic is how you can focus on relationships so that you can see the eating disorder behaviors change. So the reason I wanted to do this, because I did a live yesterday and there's heaps of interaction on there, and I really get the sense that people focus a lot, and I've gotten this from the work I've done with clients, focus a lot on trying to change the behaviors. So the thing is, they're distressing. They're the thing that cause the most stress for someone. So you really want to make them stop. It's just, hey Cherie, thanks for joining in. California, awesome. I'm in sunny Sydney. It's beautiful here today. Still cool, but nice. So I'm talking about changing things in relationships. Don't get so caught up in focusing on the behaviors. I know that's the thing that stresses everybody out. It does, because it's distressing to be binging, to be restricting, to be purging, to be doing any of the behaviors that an eating disorder entails, whatever that is for you. However, when you focus solely on trying to change those, you miss the point of why you actually need them. So for some reason, you need the eating disorder behaviors, and it's different for, and I say for some reason because it's different for everybody, right? So I can't tell you specifically why you do them. I mean, I can go through different reasons, and I will do in all my lives, but you know, today I'm talking about you starting to notice that when you just focus on the behaviors, what will happen is you will get really pissed off with yourself, because you will think that you're failing, that you're not doing enough, that you can't change these behaviors, that you will always be stuck. And the reality is, when that is your focus, when you only focus on changing the behaviors, you will leave yourself in a space where you're going to continuously be frustrated with yourself, because you're not understanding why you actually need the behaviors, right? So we talk about, I talk about eating disorders as a form of a relationship disorder. So when you start noticing what you need inside of relationships, then you start to see changes, right? When you start to notice what you need in relationship, what you're not doing in relationship, what is going on in relationships with your partner, your parents, your family, your friends, your colleagues, everyone, and yourself, then you can start to look at what you need to change inside of relationships. So Cecilia, you've said, do you think that if we focus on relationships and other goals, then the eating disorder behaviors will naturally change without focusing on them? I see this time and time again. The people I'm working with one-on-one, what happens is we focus more on shifting what's going on in relationships. So what I mean by this is, rather than focus on, right, what were your behaviors today? What happened between our session this time and last week? And tell me about the binges. I look at what was causing you to need to binge, right? So what was it that was leading you to actually need the behavior? Because you need them to help you for something, right? So so I'll give you an example. If you are, for example, having a frustrating interaction with, say, mom, if you're living at home, or partner, and what happens is you automatically find yourself in the eating disorder behaviors, rather than you focusing on the behaviors and that you're pathetic for not being able to stop them, what you need to do is actually look at what is going on inside of that relationship. So if, for example, you're not speaking up when you need to, if, for example, you are not holding healthy boundaries, and that you are pleasing your partner in ways where you feel compromised, where you feel you're compromising your own needs, it doesn't matter how much you focus on trying to change those behaviors. If you feel frustrated, disappointed, let down, angry, whatever it is, you are not dealing with the issue, you're always going to need the eating disorder behavior, guys. Like, so Cherie, you say, I'm really bad at boundaries. My ED is my only control. Look, eating disorders are where you actually you know, when you don't have good boundaries, because no one that has an eating disorder has healthy boundaries, just so that you know, nobody with eating disorders has healthy boundaries. It is one of the things that is the key to be working on, right? Boundaries with self, boundaries with others, boundaries with partner, everything, right? And this is a key component to actually recovering. So yes, Cherie, to answer it, Cecilia, sorry, when you are focusing on shifting how you do things in relationships, what happens is little shifts start to happen in your behaviors around food, right? And I'm talking about repeatedly doing things in relationships, speaking up, setting boundaries, holding them. You need to learn to tolerate how uncomfortable that's going to feel, though, because what happens for everyone with an eating disorder is that the eating disorder behaviors stop you from actually feeling guilty. That's usually what happens. People feel guilty because they want to put their own needs, you know, as equals to other people's needs. And it's like, for example, Cherie, I think you say it's more with my kids and mum. You know, like when you are a mum, you feel like you must completely be giving. There's so much in society that tells you that that's what you need to do. Actually, we really have to help mums particularly, but women in general, I think, to really learn that having needs, expressing them, does not make you selfish, okay? It's actually critical to your recovery. You cannot change the behaviors without changing how you navigate yourself through the world in relationships, in intimate relationships, with parents, with family, with siblings, with partner, with everyone. You need to start putting your own needs as important as everybody else's. And when you're inside the eating disorder, I would actually say you really need to think about what your goal is. If you want recovery, right, you have to get used to the fact this is going to be uncomfortable. It is going to be uncomfortable for you to actually say to your partner or to your parents or to your kids, I need some time for myself. It's going to feel uncomfortable when you have an eating disorder, because most people, not everybody, but most people that are struggling with an eating disorder struggle with boundaries with others, right? So how do I actually say no to others without feeling like I'm disappointing them? Now, learning how to have healthier boundaries won't come just on its own. It won't just happen like that. Just so you know, what happens is usually you have crap boundaries one way. So whether they're too rigid, say if you're starting and they're too rigid, what tends to happen is you swing the other way and you don't have any boundaries and you're like, woo, you know, like you're letting loose, and then you will find middle ground, guys. It will not always feel like you're losing control. It just happens that when you start learning these skills, you feel like you go from one extreme to the other. Cecilia, you say, I like what you say about speaking up. It's very hard to practice with my fiance. It's gotten easier, but with friends, I find myself wishing I could talk about it. I would even say, don't focus on talking just about the eating disorder. Notice how you are in your friendships. Notice how you may turn up to gatherings and not be authentic or not be able to connect with people, and be honest about that. You know, like your language needs to change a little bit when you're trying to recover. And believe me, this has been a massive learning curve for me when I was going through recovery. But to actually be honest with friends about how you're feeling, and actually that you have feelings, right? That not everything is perfect, because that's one of the things for people with eating disorders is not knowing how to be more authentic, not knowing how to share what's truly going on for you. And what happens is you then walk away from situations, from relationships, because you feel frustrated, you feel like you can't ever get your needs met. And what happens is you revert back to the eating disorder, which gives you the illusion that it's looking after you, that it's the only trusty thing. What we need to do is help each of you to develop enough skill. So the capacity to be assertive, right? Yep. And being assertive means setting boundaries. Being assertive means noticing when you have feelings and being able to express them in a way that respects both the other person and yourself. Right? What tends to happen for people with eating disorders is the majority of people will respect the other person's needs ahead of their own and not even validate or honor them. Okay, it happens, but fewer people with eating disorders will completely disregard the other person and put their own needs first. There is people like that that struggle with eating disorders. Majority of people that I've worked with do struggle to hold their needs as important as other people's needs. So that's one of the key things, right? So when you know that you need to look at your relationships, it means getting honest with what you're doing, right? How are you interacting in these relationships? Because the reality is, if you don't change how you are in these relationships, you are never ever going to shift how you are with your eating disorder behaviors. I'm going to repeat that. Never changing how you are in relationships means that you are constantly going to battle with what you do in the eating disorder space, whether the behaviors intensify or not. When you only focus on that, you miss the point of recovery, guys, okay? Cecilia, you say, I will try to be more vocal. It's hard because I get embarrassed to admit that I can't enjoy certain things unless I acknowledge that I am uncomfortable. Absolutely. Look, honestly, recovery is not easy. Recovery is super difficult when you only focus on food and only focus on behaviors. But when you start to actually really observe, so this is why I really recommend people get into slowing themselves down and journaling, even if it's journal just before you do the behaviors, so that you can notice what is going on for me. Why do I need these behaviors? And it could be you've had an interaction on the phone, say with mom or fiance, partner, and all of a sudden, you know, food becomes the thing you're obsessed about. Or even when you're on the phone, I've had people telling me they're on the phone and they're noticing they're standing at their fridge looking at what to eat, and they're actually listening to the person talk. And because they're not speaking up in that conversation, because they're noticing that they're feeling frustrated with what that person's saying, they're not even engaging in the conversation anymore. They're looking at the fridge thinking, what am I going to eat? How am I going to do this binge? What am I going to eat? How much more can I eat? When, you know, all of that. So the thoughts become about food. Now, in that situation, I would be saying to you, look at what's happening in the conversation on the telephone. You cannot just go, oh shit, I just binged and I don't know what happened. You're on the phone, you're talking to someone, you're getting frustrated, you're not speaking up about what's frustrating you, or you're not even setting a boundary and saying, look, I really need to go at the moment, I can't speak anymore. You decide you keep listening to that person, realizing it's having an impact on you, and then you look at the fridge, you decide to binge, right? The issue is not the binge. The issue is what's going on in the relationship, what's going on in that conversation that's forcing you to then reach to the eating disorder behaviors. So what happens is the eating disorder behavior saves you. It rescues you from having to speak up. It rescues you from being honest. It rescues you from actually being authentic and vulnerable with other people. So the more you can look at what things do I need to shift in relationships. Now, honestly, this is where we start getting into a space of not relapse, but permanent recovery. Because when you can start to shift how you are inside relationships with yourself and with others, I assure you, you are going to be starting your journey towards permanent recovery. Okay, so Cecilia, you say controlling impulses is hard. Sometimes I go to the grocery store by myself and buy a bunch of food and never eat it. Absolutely, Cecilia. This is common, very common. All the clients I'm working with say similar things, right? But it's starting to... all you need to do is slow yourself down just ever so much, right? So the idea is that eating disorders in their very nature are helping each person to regulate themselves. What I mean by that, intense feelings come up, and for some reason or another, you haven't had the help when you were growing up to actually learn how to deal with, process, and tolerate intense feelings, right? So what happens is we feel like the only way we can do that is with food. And it's common because a lot of people, when we're little, food is the thing that helps soothe us, right? It's the very first thing we have when we're babies, our mums, whether they breastfeed us or feed us, it is the thing that helps to soothe us. The issue is that when you have an eating disorder, this has all become very tangled, and it's really confusing because you've lost sight of what your needs are. So the impulse is super intense, and people try to put distractions in place for how do I not engage in these eating disorder behaviors. And the reality is, if we can look at what the intense feelings are and help you to learn to tolerate these and know that it's not the end of the world to feel your feelings. Feeling your feelings is your way through this, as well as speaking up in your relationships. So this is why this particular Facebook Live is important because I think too many people get caught up on trying to change the behaviors without trying to change their how they are in relationships. And I can help you see why this is about relationships. Think about whatever disorder you are struggling with. Say you're someone who struggles with anorexia, right? There's only a few foods that you will take in. You most likely people who struggle with anorexia do not have a lot of people around them. Their world becomes very small. You don't take in information and you don't let people into your life, into your intimate space. Now, let's talk about someone who binges. When you are someone who struggles with binging, you will binge on spending time with people, not necessarily sharing everything, but some people do. They don't know when to stop. And I used to do this one where I used to spend time with people and I wouldn't know where to end. So I would spend heaps of time with them. And this would happen all the time when I'd meet a guy, date him, and I would be consumed with spending all my time with him. Like all my thoughts were about that person. So the same thing that I used to do with food, I used to do with people. And then of course, when I struggled with bulimia, I still did that thing where I was binging on my time and energy with other people. But then if one thing was going in a way in that relationship that I didn't like, I'd cut them off. So I'd purge them out. I would just go, nah, I'm not doing this. People suck. I don't like intimate relationships, and I would take off. So start looking at how you're doing relationships, what you do with food, because what you do with food would tell me a hell of a lot about what you're doing in relationships. So this is why I'm saying, if you can stop focusing, and I know it's really difficult because it feels like, how can I not focus on the eating disorder behaviors, Yvonne? That's the very thing that's pissing me off. I can assure you it is not the eating disorder behaviors that are actually the issue. It is the things that are driving you to need it. The eating disorder behaviors are almost like that thing we become consumed with, and we think that is the issue, when really it could be that we're too passive in our communication, or we're passive aggressive in our communication, and we don't actually ever speak up the way we need to. We don't ask for help the way we need to. We don't feel nurtured, supported. We don't feel like we're being heard. And so all of our anger, frustration, disappointment, sadness gets dealt with inside of these eating disorder behaviors. So please, 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 if you just take one thing from this, it is, please look at what are you doing in relationships that's then leading you to become obsessed with the thoughts about food, weight, your body, how big your thighs are, how you hate your stomach. I had no idea that these things were connected when I had an eating disorder. I used to just think, no, this is just about me wanting to lose weight. I wish I knew this information when I had the eating disorder, because fuck, it would have saved me time. And that's what I want to do for you guys. You need to know that there is a way to cut the years that you are struggling in this eating disorder, and that is, do not continue to get focused on the behaviors, and that we need to help you to actually look at what are you doing in the relationships. I assure you, you will start to see changes, but you need to trust it and repeatedly say, I need to speak up here, or I need to set some better boundaries, and learn what that is for you. I'm going to leave it here for the moment, but if you watch this, please leave any comments, ask any questions. I will come back and answer them. Cecilia, thank you for being part of this, and everyone else who was part of this. Cherie, thank you for being on the call, and I really look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Bye.